I sit here by the fire, the flames flickering softly, and I finally find the courage to speak. For years, I have carried this story in my heart, a burden I could not share, afraid to let anyone see the depth of my pain. But tonight, I will tell it. I want to tell it, to let it out, to honor the memory of my daughter, and perhaps, in some small way, to let others who have experienced loss know they are not alone. My daughter was my world. From the first moment I held her in my arms, I knew life would never be the same. I remember the weight of her tiny body, how fragile and perfect she was, the warmth of her skin against mine, the small curl of her fingers around mine, instinctively trusting me to protect her. Her eyes, wide and filled with wonder, looked up at me with a trust I could barely comprehend, and I promised her everything: love, protection, joy, and a life filled with light and laughter. I never imagined how fleeting such moments could be, how fragile happiness is, how a single moment could shatter everything I held dear. The early days were a blur of joy and exhaustion. I memorized every line of her tiny face, the way her eyebrows furrowed when she was curious, the mischievous curl of her lips when she was pleased. I memorized the sounds she made, the coos, the cries, the little laugh that would make my heart leap. Every sound, every small gesture, felt monumental. Mornings were our sanctuary, sunlight spilling into our home, pancakes in the air, her laughter echoing from wall to wall. I chased her around the kitchen, my arms trying to catch her, my heart soaring with joy. I took for granted that these moments would always be there, that the next morning would be the same as today. But life has a way of whispering warnings, subtle and almost invisible. One morning, as I was folding laundry and listening to her giggle in the next room, a strange feeling settled over me. The air felt heavier, the shadows seemed to linger longer, and the sunlight looked dimmer than it should have. I brushed it aside, telling myself it was nothing, that my imagination was working overtime. Mothers are told to be brave, to be strong, to protect their children without question, and I tried to convince myself that I was merely tired, that I was overthinking. Yet, deep in my chest, a quiet unease persisted, a whisper I chose to ignore. That afternoon, I watched her play in the garden, her little shoes tapping on the stones, her laughter floating on the breeze. She chased after butterflies, her tiny hands reaching out, eyes alight with wonder. I called her name, and she waved without turning, spinning in delight. I felt a pang of something I did not yet understand. I shook it off, telling myself I was being silly, that mothers always imagine danger lurking where there was none. I tucked her in for her nap, smoothing the blanket over her small body, brushing the stray hairs from her forehead, kissing her gently. She closed her eyes, a soft sigh leaving her lips, and I thought everything would be fine. And then came the scream. It tore through the house, raw and desperate, a sound I will never forget. I dropped the laundry and ran, heart pounding so violently I thought it would burst. I reached her room and froze. The bed was empty. My mind refused to understand. Panic clawed at my chest. I called her name, over and over, my voice cracking, echoing through the empty house. Nothing answered me. The silence was deafening. I ran from room to room, searching, my hands shaking, my chest tight with terror. Every corner seemed to hide some impossibility, every shadow a threat. And then I saw it, her doll, torn and soaked, lying in a puddle by the front steps. My knees gave out. The world became a blur of rain, shadows, and despair. I wanted to scream at the universe, at life itself, for being so cruel, but no sound would come. Only tears. My mind refused to process the reality, to accept the truth that she was gone. The hours that followed were a nightmare. The police arrived, their faces sympathetic but distant. They asked questions I could barely comprehend. They spoke of procedures, of reports, of what would happen next, but I could not hear them. Time became a blur, stretching endlessly, while my heart shadowed again and again. My daughter was gone. My little girl, the light of my life, vanished in an instant, and there was nothing I could do. I remember the ride to the hospital. Rain poured down in relentless sheets. Every street, every passing car, every street light blurred together until the world outside seemed unreal, a reflection of the chaos inside me. At the hospital, the antiseptic smell was suffocating, the walls white and sterile. Doctors whispered, nurses glanced at me with pity. Time slowed, and every second dragged like an eternity. Then, the words I will never forget. There was nothing you could have done. It was too sudden, grief hit me in waves. I replayed every memory of her, every sound, every gesture. Her tiny hands, the curl of her hair, the way she laughed when I made a silly face, the way she demanded another bedtime story, the way she clutched a stuffed rabbit to her chest as she fell asleep. Each memory became both a gift and a torment. The things I had taken for granted, the morning giggles, the tiny hugs, the whispered secrets, now felt monumental and irreplaceable. Night after night, I sat in silence, questioning everything. Why did this happen? Why her? Why me? I felt my heart breaking in ways I had never imagined. The grief was relentless, a shadow that followed me through every thought, every dream, every waking moment. I asked myself over and over if I had failed her, if my love was not enough, if somehow I could have changed the outcome. And yet, slowly, I began to find fragments of a way forward. I lit candles in her memory, wrote letters I would never send, whispered stories as if she could hear me. I collected her drawings, her little handmade gifts, photographs, toys, anything to keep a part of her life. And in doing so, I realized something profound. Love does not vanish, it transforms. It exists beyond the reach of death, carried in memory, in ritual, in the quiet spaces of the heart. I remember her first steps, her first words, the tiny triumphs of childhood that seemed so small then but now weigh heavily on my heart. I remember birthdays, holidays, the ordinary afternoons that I thought would never end. I remember her insistence on holding my hand during walks, her tiny voice asking questions about everything, the world through the eyes of a child, full of wonder and trust. Loss is cruel, it is relentless, it leaves hollowness that cannot be filled. But it also teaches something profound, the capacity to love fiercely, to remember endlessly, to carry the light of those we have lost even in the darkest nights. Every day, I remind myself that she is still with me. In my laughter, in my tears, in the quiet moments when the world feels still, she is there. Her love, her spirit, her memory, these are things no one can take away. Even now, years later, I feel her presence in everything small and ordinary, the flutter of wings outside the window, the soft rustle of leaves, the warmth of sunlight on my skin. I see her in my own heart, in the way I care, in the way I grieve, in the way I remember. And though the pain remains, the love endures. It carries me, it sustains me, it reminds me that some connections, some bonds, never truly end. I tell this story not to make anyone sad, but to share the truth of love and loss, the truth of a mother's heart. Some love is eternal, some bonds survive even when the physical presence is gone. Some voices echo forever in memory. And even in grief, even in despair, even when the world seems unbearably cruel, love remains. It is the light that guides us through the dark, the warmth that keeps us going, the reminder that even in absence, those we love are never truly gone. And so I speak, finally, aloud, to the quiet room and to the fire, letting my voice carry the weight of what I've lived, what I've lost, and what I continue to carry, the endless, unwavering, unbreakable love of a mother for her child.